In terms of literacy, and particularly reading for enjoyment, I think parents have a lot of influence there. So, as I mentioned, my parents encouraged my reading. My grandmother sent me books from Germany. My mother kept buying me books. My uncle would give us book vouchers for Christmas and birthdays, and I would I would wait for that book voucher every year because I couldn't wait to go to the bookstore and buy the books that I already had like marked as I want to read this book. But there are a lot of children who are being raised by parents who grew up under apartheid as classified colored people or African people. Because you have to remember that apartheid classified people very strictly according to their ethnic or perceived background. And that influenced their trajectory very strongly because Africans would only get a very basic education that would turn them into workers, while Caucasians were funneled into the university stream. So their reading was encouraged, while Africans were not encouraged to read. So now you have to obviously understand that parents now today are very often those Africans from that previous generation who didn't get a decent education. Yes, there are many who have pulled themselves up by their bootstraps and raised themselves up, have a brilliant education, are incredibly intelligent people, and I know that they force their children to read. But of course, we have to remember that the majority of the population isn't there. There are a lot of people who have been told that they are less, that they are not equally intelligent, and that they do not have the potential to achieve what other people can achieve. And many of them believe that. And when you believe that, then how can you pass anything greater than that idea on to your children? And we also have the additional issues of poverty, that parents have other worries. You're worrying about keeping your children alive and fed and clothed. So teaching them to read is not a priority. We also have situations of broken up families where it's the grandparents that are raising the children. And so if you think that the parents' generation has had difficulties with their history, the grandparents' generation is even harder in terms of the compounded effects of apartheid on the people of South Africa.
All right, that is an important argument. In fact, I hope to be able to talk to you about it on another occasion, because it is important that sometimes we look back also in our history where we are coming from, and to elaborate on it, because this also helps us to grow and to help other people who maybe might not have the instrument to be able to elaborate on the story, to also learn from it. Essentially, that is what that part is. Okay, fine. Now let's move to your coaching business, because that is very important for us. Is it easier for you to run a coaching business or book publishing? Of course, I'm asking this question again for people who might be thinking of, okay, maybe I might start coaching, or maybe I might become a book publisher or something like that, so that they might be learning from your experience. Okay, share with us, please.
Yeah, I think for me personally, it has been easier with the publishing, but that is because I have the writing under my belt. I didn't need to learn how to write. I've just kind of hit the ground running and the words just spill out. I mean, I have tons of ideas in my head and I just have to put them down into a Word document and I'm done, kind of. But that is the thing is, if we look at the research on skills and talent, the general consensus is that you need to dedicate 10,000 hours on a certain skill to be able to master it. And I've been writing since I was 12. So I have definitely mastered, I've covered my 10,000 hours in the past 22 years. So that means that writing comes really easily to me. While the strategies with coaching are very new for me still, and also running a business is very new for me. So I'm still testing the waters. I have coached some people I know. I sent out a host of messages to everybody I know offering the coaching, and I did some strategy calls with them, and I have some clients. But now I know I've decided that my next step is actually to be working with people here in Sweden, which means that I need to translate my coaching material into Swedish, and that has been sort of a setback, if you will. But an opportunity has just arisen, so I'm hoping to actually be able to get a project up and running, to be able to offer my coaching services to high school children of immigrant background, because I very definitely see that if your average individual, it looks out at life and has difficulties, because we all have difficulties and hardships. Being the kind of individual that is like David facing Goliath, your hardships are just bigger when you have a background as an immigrant, because your parents don't necessarily speak the language very well. You've gone to school in the country, but you're constantly being told that you don't belong. And these kind of setbacks make it really hard for young people to believe in themselves and to go out and chase their dreams. So I would very much like to be at the forefront of encouraging that cohort of people to uplift themselves, to reach beyond what their teachers in school and the general society tells them that they are capable of, and to actually prove what their true worth is. Because I see that is going to help not only Sweden, but also the home countries of their parents far more than anything else any other group that I can target. And yes, absolutely. My long-term aim is to take this back to my home country and to uplift South Africans who have also been stuck with negative self-talk and beliefs that keep them down, when in actual fact, as human beings, we all have the potential to achieve the most incredible things.
Thank you so much for that. Now, in the course of this, your last response, you made mention of the word immigrant, I think, for like 2 or 3 times. So now I'm thinking, is it your main niche? Is it your main area of concentration in your artistic work, both in your writing and in your coaching? If it is, or if not it is, even if the situation, can you like tell me a little background of Sweden in terms of what you are concentrated on in your demography?
Okay. Sweden is a country that opened up its borders for immigration right after the Second World War. Their first wave of immigrants was very much work-related. So it was people from Turkey and Greece and even Germany coming into Sweden to work in the Swedish factories, because Sweden had a running economy while a lot of the rest of Europe was struggling in the aftermath of the war. But that meant that the first cohort of immigrants came in with no Swedish and learned on the job, essentially. So they just learned Swedish as they were working. But as times changed and the work situations changed in Sweden and the flows of migrants changed, Sweden changed its policy. So then it started taking in more asylum seekers, first from Latin America. So there's a lot of people from Chile, for example, from the 80s, and then from Bosnia and the other the countries of the old Yugoslavia that came to Sweden in the 90s. And all of that has obviously affected how Sweden approaches immigration, because the asylum seekers came for asylum. They did not come to work. And so there weren't necessarily workspaces available to them. So then came the requirement to learn Swedish. So you have to have a equivalent level of Swedish to Swedish high school before you can actually start working in this country, which makes things incredibly difficult for the majority of foreigners coming into this country, because there are so many especially in the past decade, who have come from Arabic-speaking countries. So, well, Muslim countries more generally, because we've got Afghanistan and Iraq and now Syria in 5 years ago. And all of that has, well, their language background makes learning Swedish hard. And so it takes time to learn a new language, especially to learn a new language to the level as if you had studied it at school, because, you know, the school is 12 years, right? And so even as an adult learning a new language, it takes time. So the average is 7 years for a person to arrive in this country to the point where they have enough Swedish to be able to get a job. But that's 7 years of your life, right? That's 7 years of being held back from going after your dreams. And that affects the next generation. So this is what I would like to work with.